Hi everyone.
Hi,
evening.
welcome to Girl
Good
Talk.
evening. Welcome.
We're just going to log into all of our different devices
Yes.
right now. Welcome. We're so happy to be with you. It's been a hectic week, but we are ready to discuss some real issues, some relevant issues. So get comfortable. We've got some amazing things in store for you. If you have been anywhere near media, you would have heard the name George Floyd. And basically, for those of you that may have just not been near any media outlets or been around anybody, basically George Floyd was a man that basically had gone into a store, used a fraudulent $20 note. The police had been called, and the arresting officers on the scene proceeded to pin him down, and one of those officers put their knee in his neck for a total of 8 minutes 47 seconds 46 seconds, which basically he died. And what's happened from that is there's been a global uprising in the black community, and his famous last words, or one of the words that he kept on saying over and over again, is "I can't breathe." And what that did is it resonated across the world, with black people who have struggled for hundreds of years with that level of oppression, and we didn't feel that it was right to ignore or brush over this topic. We think it's a really, really important topic. I think it's one that is worthy of lots and lots of discussion. There's so much in it, to be honest, that we're not, just a disclaimer, we're probably not going to be able to cover every aspect of this, but we're going to do our best to cover the key or essential truths in that. So we hope that we do it some justice today.
And I think just today is just, we're starting the conversation, because I think a lot of people you hear, and I know it can almost be a little bit overwhelming. There's so many posts, there's so many things that's being thrown
Black
at
Lives
us,
Matter.
and I think that in itself can become a little bit overwhelming. You're like, okay, where do I even begin? And I think this time is a real education, because for a lot of people we've kind of known that it was out there, but it didn't affect us directly. So it's almost something that we've become climatized to. But I think for the first time I know in my life, it's everywhere, and this is the first time that the world has woken up to what is happening and what is going on amongst people of colour. And I think that we really wanted to have this conversation because we believe that it's so relevant. It's never been more relevant. And I think that it's really just a safe space to start this conversation, and we hope that you're able to continue these conversations amongst your peers, amongst your children, amongst your friends. And so that's why we're just starting the conversation for you today.
I know there's a lot of talks going on right now, and hopefully as well, out of our discussion tonight, we're going to be able to bring some kind of balance to it, because this isn't about starting up another form of racism, and it's really important that we don't make this something that becomes negative, because the negativity of racism against black people is bad in itself, but out of this we cannot now become racist against other people. So that's really important that we don't take this and just carry on in another direction and start marginalizing another race of people. That's not what this is about tonight. So
let's give a bit of history, let's give a bit of context, because obviously we just presume that everybody knows and everyone's really knowledgeable about racism and how
we're just
far
going to switch
stems.
over the Wi-Fi, because I think you guys are having some trouble.
With the Wi-Fi.
Yes.
I think for a lot of us, we don't realise how far it stems back, and the history and the magnitude of how many people have suffered as a result of racism. And we kind of hear about, I know for me, like I've seen it in movies, it's been labelled as something that happens in the South in America, but this is something that's been happening globally all around the world for many years. And I think that you know, for me, I know I've been learning over the last few weeks. You know, I know something that was
Well, there's a lot of things we didn't, you know, and I think what's woken everyone up is that there's so much history that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And it's really, we can't blame anyone else for our ignorance or lack of knowledge of our culture, our backgrounds. I know there's so much history. For example, when I was doing my DNA, I sent off my DNA, and when it came back, it gave me all the different, you know, countries that my ancestors came from.
Yeah.
And I began to research that for myself because I wanted to know a bit more than the fact, okay, this is what I'm mixed with. I wanted to know the history. How did like Indians get into Jamaica? How did we make up? How did Jamaica even come together with all the, you know, Jamaica's such a diverse country. We have so many different nationalities that makes up this this country, and it's really important that we take the
changed
time.
over Wi-Fi. Can you guys let us know if that's better? YouTube is on a different Wi-Fi, so if you guys want to go onto that, but let me know if it's better. Okay.
Blurry, freezing, live videos, pause, slow, bad connection. So if you guys want to head over to YouTube, you can get a better connection. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what's happening
Let's refresh this.
with the Wi-Fi.
We're gonna come out and we're gonna go live again. Yep,
So
go
we're
on.
gonna, if you just give us a couple of minutes, we're gonna come out and we're gonna restart again. So just give us a couple of minutes just to sort out the Wi-Fi.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. Log out and log back in. Okay, you guys keep going.
John, do you wanna log back out and then log in? Are we back?
Okay, you guys keep
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're back. Is everyone able to see us? Is that better?
Okay, looks fine now.
Is that
Yep,
good?
all good.
We're all good.
Yep.
Is that Instagram?
Yep, better.
Yes.
Looks fine. Okay.
Okay,
we're back.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
So just to recap what we're talking about, for those of you that have just jumped on or you've missed a part of what we've been saying due to the connection or whatever, we are obviously, you can see from our t-shirts, we're talking about Black Lives Matter. This is obviously a very relevant topic, and this is something that we want to obviously be able to do on Girl Talk to keep it real and to keep it relevant. So tonight we're going to be discussing all things race and what that looks like for us and what we can do to be a part of change. And I think that's a really important thing that we're going to be discussing tonight. It's not for us to just, I think a lot of people don't know what role to play in all of this.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really going to be honing into tonight to ensure that, you know, we're not just bystanders, that we are actually participants in change, and we are vehicles that bring about change. So Sarah's just going to give us a little history of, obviously, where did this all begin? Like, how did this all come about? How did, you know, the slogan Black Lives Matter, like, where did that derive from? Like, let's go back to the beginning.
So I think that obviously my husband is Caucasian, he's white, and so you know, it's obviously been really interesting seeing it from both sides. Obviously from the black majority, everyone kind of got Black Lives Matter straight away. There was not really a lot of explanation that was needed, but from the white side there was a lot of explanation needed. So I've had lots and lots of different conversations over the course of this week, and just leave it. And so for me, it's really been about just really coming together and educating everybody. So I think that a lot of people have got stuck on the fact that it's about George Floyd. And we're going to talk a little bit about a post that was put out about him and his life, etc. But basically there's been a lot of confusion because for a lot of Caucasian people or white people, it's like this is a massive reaction or overreaction to someone's death. They all agree across the board that the way he died was inhumane, it wasn't right,
Not
etc.
everyone does.
Well, not everybody does, but some people, the majority, I would hope the majority believe that that's not a good way to die. But where a lot of the confusion lies is that they've then deemed that we're now glorifying what they believe is a criminal. And so a lot of people are very hesitant to get behind the Black Lives Matters movement because of the fact that they feel like, well, I don't want to be part of basically making this person who was in essence a criminal a martyr now. And so it's really about knowing how
But
to
the
educate.
criminality is that he had a fake £20 note.
Well, there's been a lot said behind,
Because-
you know, his history and his life.
Okay, but you know, let me just say as well, you know, you can get change in any shop,
Yes.
and if I got given a fake £20 note,
Yes.
it doesn't mean I'm a crook.
Yes.
It just meant, unfortunately, and you know, we do get that. You know, there are fraudulent money out there, and sometimes you get given it as a change.
Well, I think that Candace Owens actually released a video which was quite damning for George Floyd, and I think that that's where a lot of the reactions come from. But basically, the confusion is that, you know what, we agree that, you know, what happened was bad, but we feel like this is an overreaction. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that it's not George Floyd that everyone's protesting for.
it's what was done to him.
Well, not even that. It's the fact that Black lives have not mattered for a very, very long time. And so that really is the argument. That really is the protest. That the fact that Black lives are taken all the time and they serve no significance to a lot of people, to the point where people are not even prosecuted for their lives. And so I think it's really understanding and not presuming, if you're a person of colour, if you're black, it's not presuming that people get that. And so a lot of people have been having the conversations, and it's really important that you educate people as to what we are actually, what does Black Lives Matter mean.
But I think just to go back a little bit into the timeline of racism and what that's looked like, you know, and like I said before, like a lot of what's come to light and the images that I've seen and just reading up in history of what black people have endured is so inhumane, is so degrading, is so humiliating, and you know, I wouldn't even treat an animal that way. And I think that, you know, we have a dog, you know, Marley, and I would never dream of even treating Marley the way that these people have been treated. And I think that there's so much blood that has been shed at the hand of racism. And, you know, we can't ignore the fact that, you know, black people have been lynched. They have been murdered for centuries. And, you know,
or even like, you know, for me, it's been so educational for me, even, you know, with 67 years ago, there were still zoos where you could go
for black people.
Yeah.
They were the attraction.
Just 67
where
years
they would throw
It wasn't
food.
hundreds of years ago,
No.
just 67 years.
And when I look at that, and I look at my own father who's 64, you know, we're not talking a huge amount of time difference here. And so that is somebody's grandparents, that is somebody's granddad, grandmother that visited our ancestors, our greats, and so I think that it's really about education, and I think that we can go in and we can get really angry, and how can you not understand, how can you not react, why are you not reposting my post? But the fact is that a lot of people are very scared to, what do I say if I'm a white person? I don't understand, I will never understand what
you're
that
scared
feels
of being
like,
attacked
or saying the wrong thing.
But I think it goes, and I was thinking about this on the way here today, a lot of it is a miseducation. You know, I know I was taught in school, and I know Ashley's been taught in school about Anne Frank and about the Holocaust and about you know, the Jewish people. Like that's a part of our history that's taught to us in school. You know, and there's so much campaigning for the LGBTQ community, and to drill that into the schools. Why is that same energy and that same effort not being put into educating our kids on the Black history? Because it's not just Black history, it's history.
But
well, it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle. There's huge chunks of it missing. You're not gonna get a clear, accurate picture if there are pieces missing, and these are significant, whether we like it or not, whether we're ashamed of it, because Europe, you know, that is one of the things that Europe is ashamed of, because and that's why it's all buried. But Europe was so guilty of creating zoos for human beings that were of a different colour, and so why is that history? Why is that removed from history? Because I'm never going to get an accurate picture if some of the facts are removed.
Well, I think that one of the reasons why is because we as black people, and I say we as black people, can't agree what black looks like. So there will be some people that would argue with me if I claim that I'm a black woman, even though I've been raised as a black woman, even though I can trace my ancestry back to being black. Some people be like, but you're not full black.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if you've not grown up in Hackney and had, or, you know, wherever, you know, fill in the blank and, you know, had to endure certain things, or if you're not from straight African descent. And I think that there's also division within the black community of what black actually is. And I was saying to someone the other day that, you know, yesterday was actually the first day that I actually referenced myself as a black woman.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons for that is because, you know, growing up, I was always picked on and bullied because of the fact that I didn't fit either mold. So the fact that I was not white and then I was not fully black, well, what am I? So to be politically correct, you just say, I'm mixed race.
But I've experienced this, and I remember when Ashley was younger, he went to a really good school. It was a private school, and it was a predominantly white school. He was the only black child in his year group, and I saw the way that I was treated because I wasn't perceived as being black or the stereotype or whatever white people formulate in their mind of a black person, because, you know, my hair's not too far off them, I can go to the same hairdressers as them, you know, I can go for a blow dry. It's not threatening, and I think that is awful, because I was accepted, and then a few years later, I remember a Ghanaian lady joining the school, and she would be what would be considered as a black woman. You know, she wore her hair natural, she had a more curvaceous body, like she was, I guess, more in touch with her culture, like her culture was stronger maybe, or perceived stronger than mine was, and they literally didn't make any effort to include her. And for me, racism isn't always like a direct I'm calling you out or calling you a name, or I'm putting derogatory slurs on you. Like sometimes it's the subtle things.
It's very
and
subtle.
I think culture and society has made that seem like it's okay, because I'm a, you know, for me they'll say, oh, you got a nice tan, or you know, because this is almost like the colour that they aspire to be when they go on holiday.
The other thing I've had is where...
So I just got a quick question from Mum. Was there anything specifically you did raising 4 black children in the UK?
I just raised them as normal. Colour was never an issue in our family because we're all mixed. So my mixture is, my basic mixture is my mother is Indian and my father is black. And then my husband, his mum's black, his dad's white. So you know, we in ourselves are a melting pot. So our kids come along. And so I don't remember making race an issue.
Yeah, we did.
Because
I think that the reality is... No, but I remember conversations, and I think every black family can probably identify this, and I'm going to answer your question now, why it's not only Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. I'll get to that in a minute. The reality is, I remember with Dominic, you were told, you know, if you were going out, there were certain behaviours that you needed to make sure that you had to carry yourself a certain way. You couldn't be too much of anything.
But also, I think what that looked like, I specifically remember an occasion with Dominic where we were coming, it was somebody from church's birthday, and we were driving, he was driving a Mini, so that was perceived as a nice car for a black boy that was young. And he had been pulled over. He turned a corner, and I think they said he came out too slowly or something nonsense.
Too slowly.
You turned a corner too slowly. Or came out of the side road too slowly, and he was pulled over by the police. And this was my first instance being stopped by the police. Dominic had been stopped multiple times. This was
All the time.
So I'm like enraged. I'm like, how dare you! And you know, my dad had a friend that was a QC. He was a barrister, so he was very educated. He knew the law, and so I was like ready to throw the book at them. I want your badge number. And I think it was that thing where it's educating your children to also know their rights.
And I think that's what I remember. Even though it wasn't like race, or every minute when we were talking, you know, we're very embracing of every single race. Obviously, just looking at who we're married to, clearly we are. But I think that for us, it was education.
Yeah.
So I remember being very educated. My dad was constantly informing us of, you know, if you get stopped by the police, this is, you know, this is your rights. This is what they're
But
allowed
I think
to do.
that
This is what
also
they're
they
not
were
allowed
very
to do.
intentional in the fact that we had every right just as much as anybody else. So we could walk into any store, into any restaurant, into any place,
not
and
feel-
exposed us to
we
a lot of
never
things.
felt inferior.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the times, and I've seen this in stores, you know, you go into a nice store like
Everywhere.
a Louis Vuitton or something, and you can see that the black people are profiled.
Yes.
But if you look a certain way, so if you carry yourself nicely, you've got a nice watch on, you've got a nice bag on, they don't target you. And I think it's also us arming and equipping our children that, you know, they're not inferior because of the colour of their skin. They have every right to go into any nice restaurant, into any nice store, and to also challenge that. The other day, Ashley went into Tesco Express. I asked him to run in to get something from the store, and he came out and he said to me, the security guard was following me, and I said, well, what did you say to him? You know, you turned around and you confront them. I have money.
Yeah.
You know, don't profile me. Don't follow me around the store. And it's about us equipping our children to feel confident enough to stand up to these people.
Well, I think as well, I think that a huge part of it is educating our children and educating, and this is the conversation, we'll get into this later, I don't want to go ahead of ourselves, but a lot of it is also that because we're not educated in school, black people themselves don't know their history. As far as we know, it started with slavery and it ended with the abolition of slavery, and that's what we
all
know. And it goes so much further back than that, and even how we got to slavery, all of that and everything else, and then what happened as a result after the slavery and all of that happened with economics and everything else, and that's not spoken about. And so there's a huge miseducation into how we got here and what that looks like. And because some black people were taken to America, some black people were taken to England, everyone was segregated, and then you have the Windrush generation. There's so much in our history, and I think that we owe it to our children, number one, to learn it ourselves.
Yeah.
If you speak to the majority of black people, they do not know their history because we were never taught it. We were never taught it. We were taught about World War One. We were taught about World War Two. We were taught about all of those different things. But we were never the Victorians, the Dykins, everything else.
Well, even within the World War Two, you know, that it's only recently come to light of all the blacks that were actually involved. And I remember Dominic years ago being in the movie Red Tails, you know, because there was all these incredible pilots that fought and, you know, just were outstanding African American guys that were outstanding, but they were removed again, those missing pieces from the jigsaw, they're removed from the history. And you have so many incredible contribution from the black community, from inventions down to their contribution in the wars, and they're not mentioned in the history books. So there's this these big pieces that's missing from our history, and it's up to us individually. There are books out there, and I think, you know, I don't want to start anything on here, but there used to be a statement that used to say, if you want to hide anything from black people, put it in a book. And that is, I don't know who said it, but we don't read enough. We don't educate ourselves, and it's not enough to just listen to other people's views and opinions. Get the facts for yourself. Find the books. There are some incredible books out there that educates us on these things, that educates us. And I've done it in church. I've, you know, done women's days where I've pulled up, I've researched all these incredible. I remember one women's day that I did in our church, and there were women that are captains today. They are captains of warships. They command a warship. There are black female pilots. So there are some women that are really doing incredible things. But most of the time, and I remember showing that in church, and people were like, wow, I didn't know that. So it's not enough for us to say I didn't know. It's not enough for us to stay in a place of ignorance. And I hope what's going on at the moment will drive you to go into researching and finding out your history for yourself so you can communicate. If you want to pass something on to your children, don't wait for the system to educate them. You as parents, educate your children because I believe that a lot of young black youth and young people today, the reason that they act so crazy is that they don't really have anything that they can look back and be proud of. And when you see the incredible black people that we've had that's done inventions, that's accomplishing incredible things in their lives, that gives you a sense of pride in that our race, you know, the black race, has something to be proud of. So educate yourself and educate your kids.
Yeah. So the statement that a lot of people are saying is, why is it Black Lives Matter and not All Lives Matter? And you've probably seen it put that all lives matter, but until Black Lives Matter, all lives cannot matter. And the reason for that being, and the reason this is the conversation I had with my children's school today, is the fact that there is no other race where they literally have been at the bottom consistently. Whatever country you go into, wherever you are, they are literally the lowest level. And even down to in the Indian culture with the caste system, the lighter you are, the higher up you are, the darker you are, because anything that basically pertains to blackness is seen as a negative. So it's not that the Indians are not being persecuted, it's not that the Muslims are not being persecuted, it's not the, you know, different races are not being persecuted. No one is saying that. And we're not, this is not I'm 100% not racist. I have a white husband. My children are obviously very multiracial. This is not what this is about. This is not like Black Power. We're now going to get our Black Panther outfits out. It's not that. It's this. The black race has never had a platform before to be able to say we matter, and this is why we say, because black lives have not mattered for hundreds of years, where people have thought nothing about taking a black life, whether that's through lynchings, whether that's through rapes, whether that's through disposing of of our children, whatever it may be. There is no other race that has experienced, for whatever reason, I personally think it's demonic, where the level of abuse and disregard and lack of regard for life. So when we say that Black Lives Matter, and until Black Lives Matter, all lives cannot matter, because if you have never been at the bottom where a lot of people will not know, and they say that a black person is up to 40%. The percentage of them being stopped and searched is up to 40% more than any other, including Indian, including all of those different things. So and obviously because of, it's so complicated, but because of slavery, because of all these different factors, it's affected the economic status of black people. It's affected the mentality of black people. Even the division within the black race is as a result and streams from all of that. So it's so complicated, and we believe that there's nothing that God cannot fix. But right now there's a platform that's been made available for the first time in the history of time. There's the first time where black people have come together globally and said, we've had enough, and you will listen, whether we have to do, if we have to riot, if we have to do whatever, we are going to make our voices heard, and we're going to make a change for our generation, so that the generation coming up after us do not have to experience the racial profiling, the disregard for life, the fear to go for a drive
or a jog
or play in a park. This is what it's about. So if you are a Christian and you are watching and you're still on All Lives Matter instead of Black Lives Matter, then I'd say you need to go into your prayer closet and you need to allow the love of God to be downloaded in your heart, because not everything can be about you all the time. Sometimes for the greater good and for the greater purpose, we need to put ourselves aside and say, do you know what? I may not understand this in its entirety, but I can have empathy as a mother, as a father, as a brother, as a sister. I can empathize with, if that was my son, if that was Ezra, and you're shooting my son for playing with a toy gun.
But I think aside from that, as a person that's not of colour, you will never ever know the struggle that a black person will endure. And I think that is uncomprehendable if you've never had to experience that.
What do you guys think about the lack of black education in schools? Like,
So
We're gonna get there. Let's
We're
not
gonna
run
get
ahead of
there.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Just give us a moment.
we've got a lot to cover.
We've
though.
got a lot to cover, but I
Yeah.
just want to just touch on a
Run
little
out
bit
of time.
more of
Yeah.
unity amongst
Mm.
the black community.
Mm.
A lot of the time, and I know that this has been something that I've heard, you know, a lot of the time it's racism against different countries, and there's, you know, Nigerians against, or Africans against West Indians, and there's very much that, and I think we have to break that mindset before
Yeah.
we can progress.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the times black people, they're happy when they're succeeding, but if another black person
Yeah.
comes behind them
Yeah.
and tries to
Yeah.
succeed, they'll do everything
Yeah.
to tear them down, or they won't celebrate them, or they won't acknowledge their success,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of people, and I think it's where we have to have a really honest look at ourselves.
Yeah.
Are we okay?
Yeah,
You
Well,
know,
I
are we-
remember
there's a lot of racism amongst black people. But
Yeah.
before we start trying to deal with other races being racist against us, we have to address the racism that's within us.
And you know what?
From
It's
country to
but it's also
country.
racism that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I remember my grandmother is a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
She's a lovely woman, but she was very racist.
She was ignorant.
She was very ignorant, and she would say things that didn't actually mean anything. So she
Yeah.
would say stuff like, "White people are the devil."
Yeah.
But then,
It's not
so then,
funny.
and then I remember when Ian married Haley,
Yeah.
who's my auntie. She's white. And then I'd be like, what about Haley, Granny? And she'd be
She's
like, oh, she's different. And then, like, when I married Jason, oh, but he's different. And obviously now she's a Christian, thank God. And, you know,
Yeah.
maybe just done a work in her heart. And the way that she would say, you know, don't marry anyone too dark or whatever.
Or
because
African.
Or African, because West Indians obviously have a thing against Africans as well. So it was, there was
vice
always,
versa.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think that we also need to deal with racism
within our
within
own
our own people
Yeah.
as well.
because there is a lot of it, and to be quite honest, I think we have more racism than people outside, because you see it, you know, and we have the community, we're in a community of a church community, and you see it, and you know there are certain people that will never marry somebody that's a different race, and it's not because, you know, because at the end of the day, my geographic location, how can you rule me out for my geographical location?
Well, how was it when you married Dad?
Well, that was our whole issue with his parents. The question that his parents asked was, where is she from? And when he told them, oh, she's from Jamaica, is you know, and this is within the islands, and the statement that when he said that, oh, she's from Jamaica, his parents said to him, well, you don't marry Jamaicans. So it wasn't about love, it was geographical, but we've got so much similarities. Yes, there are little differences within the Caribbean islands, but even within our own people. And I remember my dad going to see them because, you know, my husband had asked for my hand in marriage, so my dad wanted to introduce himself, and he turned up at their door, and, you know, they slammed the door in his face. This is within our own culture, and I know within a lot of your cultures, some of you give your kids a hard time, and it isn't even so much that, oh, they're from another part of the world, they're just from a different village, and we just persecute one another so much, so we have to deal with the actual racism that's already in our hearts.
And I think that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you have to be careful that you've not been indoctrinated
Yeah.
by your parents or your
Ancestry,
grandparents, and
yeah.
it's that ancestral
Yeah.
indoctrination.
You don't
And I
know
think-
why, but you just
exactly. And
embrace
I've
it.
heard it amongst my peers. Oh, I'm going to marry somebody that's from my country so that we can, you know, because then everything's similar, the food's similar,
Yeah.
you know, the way you do things is similar. But that's culture.
Yeah.
And, you know, the reality is, ask yourself, is that the reason why I'm still single? Because
Yeah.
if you're
You're
closed-minded,
stuck on
God may
culture.
have somebody
Yeah.
for you that's from China, you know, and if you're stuck on the fact that I need to marry somebody from the same country as me, then you may end up being single for the rest of your life
Yeah.
because you've closed your mind to what
Yeah.
God may have for you. I know for me, and I don't even know where it came from, was that I had this perception of Jamaican men that they all cheated. And I don't even know where they came from, but it was always in my mind there
Yeah,
somewhere.
someone says
And I
it.
don't even know how that even became
Yeah.
a thing. And so I was never even open to that. And now my husband's Jamaican, so and that's the reality. Like a lot of the times you don't even know where that thought has
Well,
come from,
people
or where that
stare-
information's
It's,
come
it's,
from.
it's a statement that gets done in your heart. You don't even realise it
Yeah.
because there's so much stereotyping. Because I had that. I heard that somewhere, and I remember as a teenager, I'm like, I'm never going to marry a Jamaican man because because I always heard that the Jamaican guys like had babies everywhere. So I didn't want that. That was not a portion of my life. So I remember as a teenager, based on things that people were saying within your own community. This isn't outside.
And your
But
dad
the-
was a Jamaican.
And my
Yeah,
dad was-
great Jamaican
I
man.
know,
Very
it's
faithful and loyal.
crazy. But you take that stuff on board, and I remember making a decision that I'm never going to marry someone from Jamaica, but I'm from Jamaica, and now I'm, obviously I'm saved and I understand it all a lot. I would never rule that out, but it was something that within our own culture, within our own peers, these statements were made, and there's so many of us. Our mindset, the way we think, has been altered based on the company that we keep and the statements. And unfortunately, a lot of those racist remarks come from maybe from the older generation because that's what they were told.
Well, I remember when I was dating Jason and we were in Westfields and a black man who I've never met before, took it upon himself. I was walking with Jason hand in hand, and I remember he went into a store, so I was waiting outside for him, and he came up to me and he said to me, "So you couldn't find any of your own kind?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Excuse me?" And I was so taken back by it, and he was genuinely offended, like me and him grew up together, and that he was even an option. And he asked me again. He said, "Was there no black men that you could have chosen?" And I was so taken back by it. I was like, well, if it's based on you, no, can you go away? I don't know you, dude. But it was that whole, that presumption of being able to feel like he could come up to me and say that. He's never met me before. He doesn't know my name. He doesn't know my background. He doesn't know anything about me. But all he saw was that I was walking with a white man, and so I've left the other
you
side. I betrayed black people.
I had that as a teenager. I remember we were like 17 years old, and I'm dating your dad, and he's very fair, and especially back in the day, he likes to tan himself now, but he's really quite pale. And but he's like, he'll tell you he's blacker than me. But I remember walking out with him. We'd go cinema, and we'd go places where, he's West Indian. He's born in the Caribbean as well. But we'd go places where there's other young people that's from the same background. But I remember we would hear comments behind us all the time. Oh, is that a white man hold that? And, just these comments, these black guys were making comments about us. So we would always be within our own culture. We were separated because they assumed. And I remember one time, this is just a few years ago, the two of us went to it was a black production. I can't remember which production it was, but it was Roots. Was it Roots? We went to a theatre production, and he's the only very fair looking. A lot of the times people think he's white, but he felt uncomfortable because it's like people are now looking at him because this Roots was quite kind of one of those movies, those programs that stirred up emotions in people, and it made him uncomfortable because suddenly people started noticing him and he was getting glances. And I think had the tables been reversed and that was me, I would have felt uncomfortable because black people were making him, they don't know where he's from, they were just judging him by the shade of his complexion. But in matter of fact, he's more black than I am. He's more into the culture of the Caribbean ways than I am. Yet in the midst of that, they judged him by the shade of his skin and assumed that he wasn't one of us.
But I think it's also, a lot of people think that this is an American problem, that this doesn't happen
and
in
it's
the
been
UK.
here a long time.
The reality is racism is rife in this country, and just because it may not have necessarily happened to you directly, it very much still exists. It happened to me a couple of years ago. I was literally in the petrol station filling up my car with petrol. This Asian man, or I don't know, he looks Asian, decided to make a comment, and I didn't know he was where he was going with it, but he was like, "Oh, nice car," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." And then so I went in and paid for my petrol, came back out, I was about to get into my car, and he's like, oh, so is that your drug dealer boyfriend that has bought you that car? And I was like, okay. I said to him, I said, jealousy is a really ugly thing. Like, it's not something, it doesn't look good on you. And he then proceeded to then spit on my car. And I say all that to say that racism is very much a thing in the UK. And, you know, we have to not be asleep to this.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be awake
Yeah.
and we have to wake up this generation. We have to wake up our children.
Yeah.
And I think just quickly going on to how do we educate, it does start in the schools. And I think that that's the way that we can really make a difference with this whole movement, you know, because at the end of the day, like I said, they pushed LGBTQ in our schools and they've pushed that through and they've made that something that is a part of the curriculum of our kids. We need to go with the same aggression and with the same tenacity to make sure that this is something that our children are learning, because the reality is nobody is born to hate. Every child is born a blank canvas. You know, hate is learned behavior and no child is born racist ever. It's what they're taught. And the reality is that we have to educate the generation that's coming behind us, because the fact is that, you know, the people that are in their 70s and their 80s and maybe have been racist their whole life, or, you know, the reality is they're probably never going to change unless God literally changes their heart. They're probably never going to change and they'll die being racist. But we can do something with the generation that is coming behind us, which means that it needs to start with us educating them.
Okay, so we've got a few questions. We've got a couple of good questions. So Vanny wants to know, can you share your views in racism about, is racism about, oh, just someone else just wrote something, sorry. Is racism about race or power? I would say with the black race, the racism against the black race, it's both.
Yeah, I think it's both.
I think that there's been, I think that they realise how powerful. I think if we go back again to our history of what brought it all about and the money and the wealth and everything else, that obviously, you know, the countries where black people lived or abided, obviously there was a lot of wealth, etc. So it's a mixture of both. And I think that people are always scared of what they don't know, of what is not familiar to them. And I think personally, spiritually, I think it's demonic. I think that there's been a target on black people.
But I think also if we look at just the course of the last couple of weeks, the power that does come when black people unite and they come together, you know, we're going to be showcasing some black owned businesses because we believe in the power of unity. And if we can break that mindset and that mentality that we're pitted against each other, that's what we've that's what they've relied on for generations, that we're one against each other, like you can't succeed if I succeed, and you know there's that constant battle between, you know, there can only be one, you know. We've got a range of different products that we're going to be promoting shortly, and there's room for everybody. You know, it's not that it can only be one, there's room for everybody to succeed. And I think when we can start to change our mindset and our mentality and stop living this pit each other against each other, things will begin to change.
Okay, so we've got another question from Francesca who says, how can people keep commenting, hold on. How can we address systematic and institutional racism in the UK? So for me, I had this conversation, Francesca, today. So I arranged a Zoom call with my girl's head teacher and the head of the curriculum today. And because I understand and recognise that if it doesn't start in the classrooms, it's not going to be able to go anywhere else. And it really starts in those grassroots years where, you know, you're 5 and 6 and you're sponges and you're being taught and normalising and not putting it into a box of Black History Month. You know, actually making it go through and stream through every single part.
That's
So
something
some of the conversations that I had with my daughter's school today was, first of all, I demanded to see equality in their teaching staff ratios. I demanded to see equality in the students. And I told them about being very intentional with their selection, because to swing a pendulum the other way when it's swung so far another way, you have to be very intentional with it. And somebody says, well, that's not right. Like, I don't think that a teacher should be given a job because they're black. Well, yes, if you don't have any. So that's you need to do that. So I believe that it starts with, if you are a parent or if you have access to education,
Go
you need
see
to get on
them.
your governors. But
Yes.
also, I wasn't going to the school saying you guys have to do this. I said, listen, we're going to walk alongside you. Samantha was with me. We're going to walk alongside you if you need us to research this, if you need us to hold meetings, if you need us to educate. But I said, first of all, before you can educate our children, you need to educate yourself.
Exactly.
And I said, because if you don't understand Black history, if you don't understand why
Can't
Black
teach
Lives
it.
Matter,
Yeah.
you cannot teach it.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really targeting those workforces, those workplaces, speaking up, stop being so compliant, you know, addressing when you see injustice.
And I think that's the
making
thing.
those meetings.
I think that's the thing. It's not about being a bystander. We can't complain about what we allow.
Yeah.
And I think it is about participating. You know, if your child is in a school, get on the governor's board. You know, be a part of the parents' association.
And that's one of the things you often don't see with Black, unfortunately, with the Black community. We don't even go to our kids' parents' evening.
Exactly.
We don't get involved with that. And we just rely on whatever report comes back.
Yeah.
Get involved. Know what's going on.
Have a say.
Have a say. Let your
But
voice be heard.
when I spoke to them today, it wasn't an attack.
Yeah.
It was an education, and I
Yeah.
said, I understand
It's
that
important.
there is no way that you could possibly know what Black Lives Matters mean.
Yeah.
So I want to educate you, and we broke it down. We broke down why it's Black Lives Matters and not necessarily all lives matters. We broke down everything. We broke down the history. We broke down everything else. And I think when we start having those conversations with our friends, with our peers, with our churches, with each other, and the conversation has been started.
Yeah.
That's what Black Lives Matters is about. The conversation has been started, but it's not for us to now just post all these cute posts. It's for us to now be
Do
active
something.
in our
Yeah.
communities,
Yeah.
have those conversations,
Yeah.
because people are willing to listen.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, because I actually tried to have this conversation with my
Yeah,
daughter's
you
school before, but they were like, oh, you know, we're not going to really just choose a Black kid.
Yeah.
But now they're like, we're listening,
Yeah.
because now the world is talking. And so use these opportunities, because you have a window, and it's really important. You meet with your bosses.
Yeah.
If you are the only Black person in your office, make an appointment with your boss and say, I just want to ask the question why. If the
There's no
churches
one
are
in
not
management,
addressing it,
yeah.
we need to ask the question why. You need to ask the question why. Okay?
We're running out on
Yes,
time,
we
so
are.
we want to
Okay.
we want to be able to promote some of the
Yes.
Black products and the Black-owned businesses, and it's really important that we support one another and get rid of that crab mentality.
And can we just say, this doesn't now discount every other business, because
No.
like I've seen some amazing known businesses that are really obviously supporting the movement and are really taking a stand. Amazon have done it.
Yeah.
I saw Etsy, they emailed me yesterday. They are really taking a stand and standing in solidarity with the movement of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
But we just want to highlight, obviously,
But
today.
I also want to say, it's not every Black business does what they do with excellence. I'm not going to go to a restaurant simply because it's Black owned. So if we've got a business as Black people, we need to operate on a level of excellence. So people are not going to roll into the doors of your business if it's shoddy and it looks horrible. We've got to really take it to another level. We have an opportunity to for more customers to be attracted to our businesses, but if we're not producing a brand that is excellent, it should be able to be on the level of the high standards. So make sure that as a Black business that you are functioning with the highest level of excellence.
Okay, so these are some of the businesses that we find excellent, and they're all tested and proven.
And listen, talk about girl power.
Yeah. These are all female led.
These are all female led.
Yeah.
They are all owned by these ladies,
Yeah.
and they have offered us some
Discounts.
serious discount, girls.
Yes.
So
And men, if you're watching.
and men,
This is for you
but
too.
this is really now again about unity.
Yes,
We can all
yes.
listen to this and be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's nice,
Yeah.
or we can literally make them
Yes.
sell out.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
yes.
want them to sell out, girls.
Yes.
So literally, as soon as you finish, we know. As soon as we. Pastor's in the room today. Very distracting. We want them to sell out, guys.
Yeah.
We want them to be
Yes,
able to
yeah.
literally clean out their shelves where
Yeah.
they've got to
So
restock.
who's done it?
Okay,
girls?
so I got Bixie Potts, one of my fave. We've
Yes.
promoted it before on the
Yeah.
show. So Bixie Pots is a
Yes.
natural shea butter.
Lovely. It's what I've got on me right now.
This one is
That's my
whipped.
new one.
That's your new one. So you can see it's like a souffle.
like a mousse,
It's like a
yes.
souffle, and it literally melts into
Yeah.
the skin.
Yeah.
So this is run by Abake Abu,
And she's offering a 10% discount.
just for this weekend.
Yeah, so the code that you put in is Girl Talk V2V.
We're gonna post
and
all
that
of
gives
these.
you so that's Girl Talk V2V, and you get a 10% discount.
So these are the lip
How
balms
long
which are
is that
new.
available
This is
for?
till Sunday.
Till Sunday, so
So-
make sure that you
Let's clean her out.
yes, make sure you
Let's
clean
sell
her
her
out.
out.
I can't go on without promoting Auntie Claudette's. Danny actually told me about them. They're over in Dunstable,
Selena
and they
told me
are
about
Selena. So this is what we should do, you know, is help support one another. It's a black-owned business, and they cater to African and Caribbean foods. They have fresh fruit. I bought a whole box of mangoes today. They do all the foods.
Really well done.
Really clean shop. They've got fish in the back, and they've got all the
Yeah.
the produce and groceries. So check them out. That's Auntie
So people are
Claudette's.
asking us to zoom in. We're going to post,
everything.
everything, guys.
Yes.
So just jump back on
Yes.
ours.
And all the
We're going to
discount
post
codes.
all
Yeah,
of the
so
discount
that's Auntie
codes. Don't-
Claudette's in
don't stress out.
Dunstable. Yes.
Okay, so the next one is Ori Metaclay.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yes.
We promoted this before on
Yes.
the show. She's offering a 20% discount code, so that's really good, guys.
Yeah.
This is a hair clay, so you literally mix it with just some water in a non-metal bowl, and you can literally just
Leave it on as a mask.
you can leave it
your
on as
hair.
a mask, but you can use it as a wash, I think.
Yeah.
And then she's got the oil as
Yeah.
well, which
And-
is the Kalila
Yeah.
oil.
And the oil is amazing because for my hair texture, I usually cannot take oil in my hair, but this one, it just makes my hair so incredibly soft. So I really
And
recommend
just
that.
to also on her website, she also does hair courses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how to look after your natural hair,
Yeah.
or you have children, you have girl children,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know what to do with their hair, you can join one of her
Yeah.
courses, and we will post her website and
Yeah.
all the links there.
And I just want to give a quick shout out to my daughter-in-law, Kadisha, Eyelash Game. She's got it on Instagram, Eyelash Game. Get your lashes done. I know with the curfew is being lifted soon, so you'll be able to go and get yourself back on track. So check that out, Eyelash Game on Instagram.
Okay, and then I want to give the biggest shout out to my girl and my friend, Valerie. She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's an incredible entrepreneur. She actually bases in Ghana,
Yeah,
but
so
she
all her
delivers all
products are
over
made
the
for
UK.
Ghana.
So I ordered this like 2 days ago and
Yeah.
it arrived.
Yeah.
So they've got men's, they've got women's, they've got oils, they've got face wash. So this is the liquid black soap. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
I've used it.
Yeah.
Use it.
I've
Dominic,
been-
can you give us a quick review? Like
yeah,
shout
I
out.
used it yesterday. It's actually really good.
Your face
It
is
just-
literally
yeah.
like
Glowing.
Usually that matte finish,
awesome.
like gets rid of like the oil.
Yes,
Yes,
it
yeah.
was like even
Yeah.
like today, my skin has just felt
Feels lovely.
awesome. That was
Okay.
just literally one day's use. So go onto her website. It's www.rnrluxury.co.uk. She's offering a 15% discount
Wow.
for the week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go stock up.
And she's
Love
and
it.
and
Don't
it's
just
the-
buy one. Stock up.
the code is Girl Talk
So we'll
15.
post that.
Girl Talk
Yes.
15.
Okay, then we have St. Clair's Hair. So this is run by our very own Dami. She runs. Let's just see if I can open this up there. We do
And
practice
she's on
this.
Instagram, St. Clair's Hair.
Yeah, so again, we're going to post it.
lovely
She makes this
package.
herself. So it's really nicely
Yeah.
packaged in this box. So this is her leave-in conditioner spray. I'm going to give this a try.
Yeah.
I need to
I've
wash my
tried
hair.
it.
I need to wash
it.
my hair
I've got
today,
that
actually.
as well.
For somebody that's a curly haired girl, I always I find that throughout the day my curls get a little bit dull and a little bit dry. So a leave-in conditioner spray is perfect. So I'm definitely going to be giving this a try. She's offering a 10% discount code. Do you have her discount code?
We'll put it out.
Is that me?
We'll put
Yeah.
that up on.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it here.
Oh, you've
Okay.
got it.
So this is St. Clair's Hair. She's offering a 10% discount code. She also stocks hair, really good quality hair and weave. She makes wigs as well. So definitely.
Can I just say, because someone's
check her out.
asking, they said the biggest challenge I found with black-owned businesses is the pricing matrix. They tend to be way over the market rates. Now more than ever, we have to be wise with our expenditures.
Yeah.
We'd really like to support black-owned businesses. How do we address this pricing challenge? They've offered us, guys, discounts, but also you got to remember, these are organic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yeah.
this is sourced in
Yeah,
Ghana,
yeah.
this shea butter.
Yeah.
Abike makes this from scratch.
Yeah.
So what everything we've given you are organic brands. There's no chemicals. There's no other formulas.
But can I also say as
in
well, you got to remember, like, the bigger products like Aveda and people like that,
They're bigger
they're
companies.
they've got
They're mass
factories
productions.
that are
Yes.
mass producing, which is why they can offer the discount that they do.
And the more we get behind these
Yeah.
guys, let's get them where they're at factory level.
And can I just also say, you know, we have a mentality, and I was speaking to this one of the owners in Auntie Claudette's. When it comes to black people, we want to barter them down. Stop it.
Yeah.
You know, let's support them. Let's stop trying to get it cheaper, and let's support them, because I know, like, when I want a product, whether it's black owned or white owned, I know I pay good money for stuff. So,
And I always say to my husband, you get what you pay for. So
Exactly.
you buy quality
This is
and
quality
you get
stuff.
quality. And the
Yeah.
reality is this is the same kind of price point as if you were going to go to Kiehl's or whatever. It's actually cheaper than Kiehl's.
yes.
So, you know, if you're going to get quality, you're not buying your Garnier face wash, you're buying quality. You're going to see the effects
Yeah,
in your
yeah,
skin,
yeah.
in your hair, and it's not a
Absolutely,
one-time use.
yeah.
You have to use it over and
Yeah.
over consistently
Yeah.
to see the real change.
And I've actually used all of these products
Yeah.
that we've shown you here. I've got, these are actually mine. So I use all of these products, and they are amazing. So we're not just talking and promoting from nowhere. We're actually promoting from experience, where we've tried these ranges. So support them. There's many other black owned businesses. Support them if you need your hard food and you need your seasonings and all that stuff. Go visit Auntie Claudette's and support them.
And guys-
and also this isn't one of the ones that's on our list, but Malcolm's, is it? What area is that?
Willesden High Road, I think.
Willesden High Road. Malcolm's, another black owned grocery store, does meat, get all your mutton and all that kind of stuff. Go support
But also,
them.
if you're a black-owned business and you want to offer a discount code or an
Yes.
incentive, DM us, email us,
Yeah.
and we're happy
Yeah.
to obviously use our platform
Yeah.
to obviously promote you as
And
a
let me
black-owned
just give
business.
another last shout out.
Mother.
Bush Babes, another
Yes.
black-owned company. They sell all everything baby.
Alison, you
from
need to give me the
prams.
discount code.
Yes, we need.
Still waiting.
Yes, we're waiting for a discount code. We'll put that out as soon as we get that from them. But Bush Babes, they've got an incredible store, and you can shop online.
Yeah. So, guys, I can't say this enough. You know, we can post and post and post, you know, tearjerker where you just feel like, you know, just going out and just saving the world. But if you're not actually putting your money where your mouth
Yeah.
is, then
Nothing
it doesn't mean
changes.
anything. And
Yeah.
we are, I'm telling you now, prophetically in every area, this is historical.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you need to get behind it. You
Yes.
can look with your eyes
Yeah.
and you cannot do
Be
anything.
a part of it.
Be part of
Yes.
what God
Yeah.
is doing. I
Yeah.
believe that God is actually doing something to redeem his people.
Yeah.
So make sure you get behind. I want to hear every single one of these guys.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
be very upset with you if they have any stock left. We need to get behind
Yes.
And just quickly before we go, just to reiterate, what is it that we can do to obviously bring about the change?
Yes.
What is it that we can do? Just some tips of what we can do actively. As a parent, get into contact with your schools.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're an employee, get in contact with
Yeah.
your workplace. It
Have
starts
conversations with
us.
your
Yes.
friends. Don't
Yeah.
make presumptions that people know what on
Yeah.
earth you're
Yeah.
talking about. Have those conversations and check your heart. This is not a white versus black thing.
No,
this
not
is
at all.
this
Human
is
race.
human
Yes.
race.
Yeah.
We want to equally
Yeah.
run equal. It's not about white against black. You know,
Yeah.
it's not now for all the black people to rise up
Yeah.
against the black
No,
white
no,
people.
guys, that's
That's
not what
not
we're
it
saying.
at all.
Yeah.
That's not the heart of God. This is about, as a race, uniting, coming together, supporting each other without jealousy, without anything else, and getting behind everybody.
Yeah. So this isn't about racism. Don't take it there, guys.
No.
This is about us
We
rising
are
up
literally
and
have so many
yeah.
races
Now's,
on the table.
now's our time. So,
So join
Thank you
us
for joining
again
us tonight.
next week.
And just jump onto Instagram. We're going to do a video in a second featuring all these products in full.
Yeah, so join us again next week at 8:30. We have another juicy, challenging topic
And
for
check
you.
past Erica tomorrow at 1 where she's going to do a southern
okay.
throwdown.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us
I'll
at
see you
Girl
next-
Talk.
I'll see you next week.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.